On this edition of Music Day, a verified hit, that's what friends are for. A conversation on friendship, music distribution, and the future of music business with our guests, Troy Carter and Jay Erving.
We're going to tell you stuff people won't tell you. Real talk with experience.
We talking business up in here.
We're going to give the people what they want.
That's what I'm talking about.
Welcome to Music Day, a verified hit. And today I have two of the most out-the-box, innovative brothers in the industry. First, we have Jay Erving. Julius J. Erving is the founder of Human Resources, an industry-leading independent digital distribution company whose clients include Aunt Clemens, Pink Sweats, Baby Rose, and YBN The Mirror. Founded in 2018, Human Resources has powered the rise of numerous critically acclaimed top artists, crossing over 1 billion streams for projects released under its banner in less than 18 months. Previously, Jay also served as co-president at Atom Factory, where he signed Charlie Puth, managed Nelly and Jeremiah, and oversaw several investments, including one alongside Usher, to provide school supplies to underprivileged children. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here. And then we have your partner in crime, Mr. Troy Carter. Troy Carter is the founder and CEO of Q&A, a technology and media company focused on powering the business of music via distribution, services, and data analytics. Formerly, Troy was the founder and CEO of Atom Factory, where he rose to prominence nurturing the careers of global superstars, including Lady Gaga and John Legend. He most recently served at Spotify as its global head of creator services, overseeing the company's growth strategy for artists and record labels. In 2017, Troy was also named entertainment advisor to the Prince estate. His interest in the intersection of technology and culture resulted in the formation of AF Square Investments. Early investments include Uber, Lyft, Dropbox, and Spotify, to name a few. Troy currently serves as a trustee for the Aspen Institute, Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and Cal Arts. Welcome, Troy.
Thanks, Monique. Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to have you guys because you guys have really done some fascinating things in this industry, but I want to go back. I want to take it back because one of the things that stands out is your loyalty and friendship over the years, and that says a lot. So let's talk about you guys as teenagers in Philly and how you guys met and connected. Let's take it back.
Wow. Jay, did you have me sign an NDA years ago or anything? Can I talk?
I don't think so.
Your secret's safe with me.
No, it's funny because Jay and I, we don't often get to do these together. So it's fun to be able to do this. But, you know, we go back. Jay's one of my oldest friends, but, you know, both of us came up in Philly together. You know, I remember, you know, Jay and his brothers and their crew, they basically used to have like the good parties, used to come into Philly, try to take all the girls and, you know, that whole thing. And, but, you know, we had, it was like, I had my crew, Jay had his crew, and it was a bit of a rivalry coming up. And then, you know, years later, we ended up, he was doing his management, I was doing my management. We ended up coming together and locked in ever since.
I love that. Jay, you want to add into anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's we had some fun times coming up, you know, in Philly, and we're moving around in the same circles. And you know, when we started to talk about doing business together, you know, I quickly realized that Troy was a visionary and, you know, one of the smartest people that I you know, and it's kind of his vision is is something that, you know, from the onset was just super impressive. And like, because he's kind of like, I'm gonna be president one day, and I'm like, well, you got to be mayor and governor. Like, but just kind of having that foresight for us, like, just not just for me as you know, partner and friend, but just as, you know, a Black leader in our community of executives. And he's shown us the way over the years.
And we always found good balance, you know, so where I think it's always been, you know, up to this day, a very complementary partnership, you know, because like Jay has incredible soft skills, like, you know, just great with people. And so just over the years, I learned a lot in terms of how to build relationships from Jay, because Jay goes deep. So, you know, very few, and then very deep, like, you know, so, and that was just, that was the strategy. So, so just a lot of complementary skills.
Wow. Now, speaking of Jay growing up, you know, here's a little small thing. Everyone knows that your dad is Julius Erving, like legendary. Ironically, my mom went to high school with your dad at Roosevelt, so they know each other. Nice. Super small world. So tell them Roz said hi. But why don't you talk about some of the perks and the access that brought you having Dr. J as your dad?
I also had Turquoise as my mom, who's from, you know, the South, and, you know, she, you know, she's a Southern woman, so Black woman. So she, you know, she kept us all very, including Troy, by the way, she kept us all very grounded. And, you know, anybody that came to my house, she treated like they were her own kids. Still does, actually. You know, she might still beat me or Troy right now today. You know, out of line. So I think the you know, coming up, the perks, you know, it you know, my dad's from Hempstead Projects, you know, my mom's from the mud in North Carolina. So, you know, they, you know, and it was a different era, like, you know, just in terms of, there wasn't social media, there wasn't, you know, in Philly, you know, it was a thing, right? Because he played in Philly and between Philly and New Jersey. But, you know, it just wasn't, the celebrity wasn't as massive as it is today. But I think my parents kept me, you know, kept all of us super grounded. And I feel like as it, you know, when I moved into my work life, I feel like I fought it more than I embraced it, which, you know, in hindsight probably would have done more embracing than fighting. But, you know, I've always been obnoxious enough to just want to do it on my own, and feel like I kind of paved my own way, which is, you know, as much as I love sports, and I just fought it, you know. I wanted to do something and have something that I could call my own. And my dad really also pushed that, you know. He and Troy can attest to this too, like, you know, he's gonna make us pay for dinner. He's gonna, you know, he'll give you a nice roof over your head and all that. But, you know, beyond that, he's gonna make you earn it. And, you know, I feel like, you know, I got that honest, and I got that early. So, you know, it was, you know, I've been blessed with phenomenal parents, got great relationships with both. But it, you know, it was, the biggest perks was kind of being around some of these athletes coming up and going to the games and being a ball boy and meeting Magic and Isaiah Thomas and Charles Barkley, who, you know, I'm still friendly with, and, you know, just some of the guys that I got to be around, and the camaraderie that I saw in the locker room and that kind of stuff, I think taught me a lot about, you know, team and, you know, relationships, and, you know, and going to war with someone, you know, that, you know, your guys, you know, because that's, you know, what they were doing. So lots of perks, but, you know, more kind of molded by, you know, the who my parents are as people than who my dad was as a basketball player.
I love that, and it shows in your career path. Like, looking at both of you, Troy, you started managing Eve when everything was kind of all coming together with her TV series and then her moving to LA. What was that time period like early on in your career and your management days working with her?
You know, it was good. You know, even I met, you know, when she was 16 years old when we first met. Yeah.
Wow.
So we go way back, and so she's from Germantown in Philly, regular Philly girl. Still to this very day, you know, I ran into her in the last year, and you know, just sat down and talked to her for hours or whatever. But just the same exact person. But you know, I think it's just that's a relationship that's just special forever, because she took a bet that she didn't have to take on, like, you know, just I was super rough around the edges, like really didn't have any experience of being a manager or anything like that or whatever. But I just think we built such a level of trust with each other. And, you know, so she put a battery in my back, you know, and I think I did the same thing for her in terms of pushing her in certain things, you know, and when she didn't want to do TV, and I'm like, you got to do it. Like, you know,
right.
we're going to do this. And, you know, and it just was a trust there. So great experience though.
How do you build that trust early on in a career with one of your artists? How is that trust built?
Small wins. Like, you know, I think, you know, in the beginning, you know, just being able to get those early small wins, just to kind of proof of concept, you know, showing up and being there when things are terrible and when things are great, you know. So I think, you know, just because a lot of times people see the award shows, or they'll see, you know, these sort of celebrations, and, you know, and that's a very small part of the job, you know. But, you know, as many nights when it's like, you know, is this thing gonna work? You know, is times when, you know, artists are broken, and, like, you know, you're dealing with family stuff or relationship stuff. And, you know, those are the moments that, you know, you just try to show up in. And I think that's how you end up building a lot of the trust.
I love that. And you did the same thing with Lady Gaga. I mean, when you met her, she was Stephanie, and then she became Lady Gaga. Can you walk us through how that process was in her early career?
Yeah, very similar to Eve. Like, you know, one of the things that Jay and I had done from the beginning was it wasn't a thing about let's go out and sign superstars. It was, you know, can we find talent that we believe in, and help usher them to success. And Gaga I met when she was 20, and you know, we just started building. I just was watching her MTV performance, and you know, for her, she just was somebody who put in the extra work and just had an incredible vision, and super clear, and somebody who studied all of the greats. And so, you know, she showed up. She showed up more than anybody else could ever show up. So you always had to level up. So she definitely was one who I felt like we stretched each other.
Yeah, you did a good job of it. And with Jay, you found Floetry, Pink Sweats, and other artists. How was that process? How did you discover these phenomenal talents?
I mean, a lot of it for us, especially back in the Floetry days, was like, it's gut, right? You know, I met, you know, these two young ladies from London. Marsha's voice just blew me away. I mean, it's like all you know, as soon as she opened her mouth, you know, her voice is just insane. And, you know, what they did together was, you know, just, it's one of those things that it cuts through the noise, and it's kind of like, what the hell is this, you know? And I was just super impressed with them from the time we met. And, you know, actually, Pat Shields, who invited us to do this with you guys today, we worked on Floetry together, and, you know, it was people like her and some others that took a chance on us and these kind of non-traditional, you know, young ladies from across the water with accents, and they dressed differently, and they didn't look like, you know, some of the stuff that was working at the time necessarily look or sound like. So folks took a chance on it, and you know, it ended up having a platinum album, you know, that was highly supported and was critically acclaimed. But I think, you know, it's all, for me, it's a lot of it is gut, you know, and just, you know, even Pink Sweats is like, he's, you know, when I met him, he was a songwriter, you know, and he was this heavyset kid from Philly that just always wore pink clothes, and I'm like, pink clothes all the time, and it became, you know, and it's like, you know, even for him, like, you know, the first project was primarily like an acoustic project, which, you know, you don't necessarily think works for mainstream, but you know what Troy was able to do with Gaga, you take something that's a little bit left to center and you pull it into the middle and make it work for mainstream America. I mean, I remember Gaga being a writer and being in studio sessions, and I would like tap Troy like, yo, does she wear these shoulder pads like to at home? Like, she has on pantyhose and shoulder pads right now. Like, what the fuck is she? This is a writing session. So like, seeing that star in people and being able to make it make sense and make it work is something that I think that we pride ourselves on over the years. We try to, you know, not be what we call like ambulance chasers. Like, you know, something heats up for a second and it's that microwave kind of hot in 30 seconds type of thing, and people chase it, and it just doesn't have longevity or have the ability to last, you know. And you know, we pride ourselves on doing things that we're super proud of and that we want to stand next to, and art has always been at the front and center for us in music, you know. So yeah, I think that's the secret sauce, is just, you know, Troy saying is do dope shit, and you know, I think that's
love it.
You know, that's kind of our mantra.
Now, you guys came from management, and you talk a lot about following your gut. So let's talk about you guys following your gut and joining forces to start Atom Factory Management Company. How did that all get started? How did you guys get the ball rolling on that?
I came in on that after Troy had started it. You know, I think we always find our way back to each other. You know, we joke that we had the longest standing Black partnership in the history of music, but you know, that's been the beauty of our relationship, right? Is like, there's when you know, I kind of need that pull up. You know, Troy's always been there, and we found ways to work together. We found ways to have success together. You know, I've recently compared our relationship to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Is like, you know, MJ left the Bulls for a little bit, but when he came back to win more championships. And you know, I feel like that's where we are today. You know, back in that championship, you know, chasing the next wave of championships, and with me kind of focusing on distribution and the recorded music at the company, and what Troy's building, you know, on the tech side, on the back end, you know, we feel like we're back to that, you know, back to chasing that ring again, you know. But you know, I as it pertains to Atom Factory, I was transitioning and was able to jump in and get involved with what Troy had going there.
And Troy, how did you even start Atom Factory? What was that process?
Really just, you know, with one artist, you know, so it was, you know, when we started Erving Wonder, you know, we had, you know, even Flowetry were the clients, right? You know, so it wasn't like we had this grand idea of, okay, we're going to start this thing and we're going to, you know, add on all of these extra people and clients. It sort of was talent led, and Atom Factory was the same thing with, when I signed Gaga, we didn't even have an office at that point. You know, we ended up, I was doing it out of my house, and then, you know, like hired my assistant, and then, you know, added another person, and just kind of built it from there. But, you know, I think, you know, the whole idea going to, you know, what you were saying earlier about trust, it's, you know, when when you're in the boardroom, in the office, and out in the field, having a team that I always know I got eyes in the back of my head, and that part to me is probably the most important, because in our industry, I learned the difference between business associates and friends. And my friends right now are on this Zoom call, in terms of just that level of friendship, and that's important, so and when you look at legacy and you look at generational legacy and you look at how it's done, it's done through very tight familial networks, and the fact that Jay's son works with us, the fact that my son works with us, the fact that is a very tight-knit unit that carries over from both from business and personal, so it's all sort of intertwined. So my guess is if we're having this conversation in 20 years, it'll be same type of conversation essentially. What are we working on next?
Mm-hmm. And Troy will still look like he's 20 years old. 20 years from now.
This is my Zoom filter.
The light is shining right now.
I got to get one of those lights that Lala had.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, the light will change your life. Follow the light, it will change your life. So let's talk about Jay's company, Human Resources, and Troy Q&A, about how you started those companies and then merged them together. I mean, obviously, the thing that I'm loving, the theme I'm seeing with you guys is the camaraderie, the loyalty, and looking out for each other and looking at the bigger picture. So why don't you tell me about how you guys started those two different companies and then how you guys had the conversation to merge them?
Yeah, I'll give you my take. When we transitioned out of Adam Factory and Troy went to Spotify, I was kind of figuring out what I was going to do next. And, I felt like there was an opportunity to be disruptive in the distribution space, and create a company that was sort of a hybrid between major labels and what they offer and distribution companies and, quite frankly, what they didn't offer, right? And doing deals that were more artist friendly, and the kind of deals that as a manager I would want to put my artist into, and just in line with where I feel like the industry's growing to, and these young artists that, being so self-sufficient and kind of leveraging the tools that they have to break as artists, just looking at the industry in a very, very different way. I met with an artist yesterday, and 18-year-old kid from Dallas, and was wowed by his music, and then we got a chance to sit down and talk. And before I got a chance to go into pitch mode, he was basically telling me how ownership was important to him, and the kind of deal that he wanted to do. And I'm like, damn, you stole my thunder, because this is my whole pitch, right? So having a 18-year-old kid from not from a city that's necessarily known for entertainment and the business of entertainment, and kind of having the knowledge that he had, it was like one of those we're on the right path moments, right? We're doing the right thing. We are these young people are talking, because when Troy and I were coming up, it was all about how do you get a record? If you got a record deal, you were lit. And and what we realized is because we've done so many record deals, is number one, we're gonna still have to go out and do a ton of work, a lot of the work. And number two is just because you got a record deal didn't mean that you were on. And and then also you look back at all of the stuff that we've done, and and these records that we've literally, our blood, sweat, and tears have gone into, and we've made in the studio with these, putting artists together with producers or songwriters or whatever, and we don't own it, and we were, you know, just kind of the approach to human resources was giving artists an opportunity to maintain ownership. And when Troy was transitioning out of Spotify and starting his new thing, it started kind of talking about, you know, my learnings over the last couple of years in the space and what I had kind of learned, and me picking his brain because I knew he had something up his sleeve that was going to change the game. And it was, you know, just kind of one of those, shit, let's do this together type of, you know, moments. And, you know, it just feels very, very natural. I mean, I think some people would say it was planned because of going into Spotify and being able to see what was there, and, you know, me building what I was building that was so, you know, complementary to what Troy's doing, and being able to pull it back together. You know, I think we probably subconsciously in our minds knew that it was gonna come back around anyway. So that's my take.
Okay, and Troy, that's a great take though. Troy, how about for you with Q&A, leaving Spotify and then starting Q&A? How did that come about?
Yeah, just kind of looking at how the world was shifting, and seeing what the impact that technology was having on all types of businesses. And although technology was moving music forward, you know, which was streaming, and, you know, and a lot of the things that we were doing at Spotify, it wasn't really moving the business of music forward, you know, so people weren't building software on the back end. And so when you look at, you know, Amazon Web Services, you look at Azure from Microsoft, you know, you look at like Google's technology infrastructure, the music industry doesn't have any of its own. And that's what we were setting out to do, and understanding that distribution was going to have to sit on top of it, and that we still were going to have those relationships with artists, and it was still going to have a soul to it. It was still going to have to feel creative. The idea was, okay, let's merge these two companies together, and it was a easy conversation.
So let's talk about let's talk about some analytical questions and all that good stuff. So there's virtual concert tours that they're creating content for television. And there's different examples of new ancillary revenue streams. So in what ways are you guys doing this? And is your company employing new ways to build music careers that pay, doing these types of things?
Yeah, the idea is, you know, can we invest in companies that are, you know, building technologies that we feel like could be complementary. So, you know, that's something that we've just never stopped doing. And, you know, we've been doing for the last 10 years, and just investing in a lot of early stage technology companies. So definitely have things that, you know, we've invested in the live streaming space, also in the social space as well. You know, we're investors in Triller, you know, which is a competitor to TikTok. So we feel like there's a lot of opportunity. Where this is going is going to be I don't think people understand the amount of revenue and opportunity that's going to exist, and with a lot less work for the artists, essentially. So, you know, I feel like we're moving to this model where, you know, it's going to be more of IP management, you know, around intellectual property than it is even the talent management itself. So, you know, like we're seeing a lot of, you know, the trends that are coming out of South Korea. And, you know, you look at the business that BTS has built, you know, Blackpink has built, and a few other artists. And you know, what they're doing with technology is insane. And I feel like, you know, just some of the stuff that we're seeing that's coming, you know, we're going to see artists that are going to be, you know, billionaire artists is going to be, you know, a normal thing that we see. It won't be one-offs.
Do you think that artists understand the importance of using going the technology route versus going with the big, huge record deal advancement? Do you think they're starting to understand the benefits of going this route versus the other?
Yeah, like I think there a lot of people are starting to see, how important ownership is.
Right.
When you look at the news broke that Tyler Perry just broke the the $1 billion mark, that he's a billionaire, and the difference between what Tyler did versus what some of his contemporaries and incredible directors, producers, and actors that came along before him. Tyler decided, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to take the bet, and I don't need to advance, and I'd rather eat ramen right now and own it, and it paid off in the long run. And I think artists, the fact that you can get paid much quicker now takes the financial pressure off. So if we can wait a little bit longer, because we went through a stage where, if you look at, early athletes and the statistics around early athletes and entertainers, for instance, right? You get smarter over generations, so artists aren't, you see less and less artists going out just blowing money and not having anything long-term, because they're saying, okay, 50 Cent and Chris Lighty paved the way with that vitamin water deal, and that taught people like us, okay, we were managers, we're like, oh, you could get equity in these companies now. We know how to do these deals moving forward. And you're seeing that in the artist community now. So I think they're getting smarter and smarter.
Mm-hmm. And do you, with that being said, are you considering partnering with any private equity companies to take on the major record labels?
We're our own private equity company.
Okay.
So that's the thing. It's like, what we're building is, it's not to take on labels. It's looking at how can we reimagine the entire music industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the labels are one small piece of it. And I think, and I don't necessarily think it's, I'm not a believer that you don't need major record labels, because I think they do play a role.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with, with all of the deal structures or anything like that. But, they have a deep level of domain expertise of, of what they do. They have, infrastructure in place for certain types of artists that, to break a major pop star as of now, you still need, some infrastructure in place. But with that being said, being able to provide alternatives is important. And so they can't be the only game in town.
Right. And now we all know the music industry has changed. Considering the payout for 1 million streams is not the $1 million payout that the sale of 1 million units of physical music was once. And without concert and touring revenue, how are you guys helping your artists make money now? Jay, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a distributor now, so I'm not a manager. But I think that we've in the distribution game, I think how we try to differentiate ourselves is to do more than just traditional distribution, right? Where the DNA of our company is built around management and the management DNA. So we are super shoulder to shoulder with our partners, and trying to help them find opportunities to to really break and showcase their artists in a real way during this crazy time. I think we've been able to pivot in a real way. In a real way, I think the artists have become more savvy in doing things and finding ways to not only get music done but also produce content. During this time. So I think it's definitely cleared out some of the folks that aren't willing to put the work in, and that don't have relationships, and that aren't willing to pivot and figure out what's next, and kind of move to that. So it's definitely cleared out some of the what we call homeboy managers, and the people that have really taken the time to educate themselves and build relationships and are now savvy enough to create other opportunities.
Now, speaking of which, we're in the middle of this global pandemic. It's just a completely different way of life that no one expected. Has COVID hurt or helped your business?
I think it's, I would say it's pretty neutral right now.
Okay.
I think but it's going to be, going back to your question that you were just asking, like the reality is, it's going to be the winter is going to be a little longer this year, right? The industry as a whole is not immune from what's happening in the rest of the world, right? So, because I think just it's sort of that butterfly effect, because if people aren't going to be able to afford subscriptions, how's that going to impact? How's that going to impact advertising? How's it going to impact, we already see what's happening with the live business. With that being said, when you look at trends, when going back to the Gaga thing, when that was during the recession of 2007, 2008, and Gaga came out of that, Katy Perry came out of that, Justin Bieber came out of that, Rihanna came out of that. Like, you just saw, just this wave of, big Adele came out of that time. Just these big superstars, right? Out of that time period. But at the same time, Uber came out of that, Lyft came out of that, like, a bunch of our portfolio companies. So it's a lot of opportunity when people don't necessarily see it in front of their faces. And then also it's our way of getting pushed into the future. Our whole team, we read Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, okay, let's do a refresher on this. We Anti-Fragile, so this is just is par for the course. But I think this is gonna accelerate us into change.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like you guys, speaking of accelerating the change, you guys know how to maneuver, where to go. So I see that your company recently opened an office in London. So what do you do to provide artists that sign with you? Do they have A&R and artist label services, creative design, promotion, and marketing? How does that work in London?
We can't wait to get back on a plane and get back to London to be able to really continue to build it out. But there's a guy that we signed that that we hired and partnered with out of London, a guy named Matt Ott, and he's outstanding. I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. He came from Spotify, but he's been signing acts, he's been, marketing acts, he's been promoting acts, he's been doing playlist solicitation for acts, ex-US, just a phenomenal teammate. And he's our boots on the ground in London currently. One of our young A&R, my son actually signed an artist that culturally is that guy in London on the up and coming rap fashion cool world. We were able to do a partnership with a company called EMI based out of London to help push that. So we have an artist there that's kind of our staple act. Matt has signed a couple of artists from out of the UK that are just very much in line with the texture of who we are as a company, and is really starting to get some real traction on artists there. But it was important for us to, I think Troy and I learned very early on, in the first time that our company was acquired, and it was we first learned that the world was bigger than Philly, then we learned that the world was bigger than the US. And and that there was a lot of opportunity, and we had to kind of educate ourselves on all things.
What happened? So when we sold our company to this company called Sanctuary Group out of the UK, and then I think like once a month they used to send us our statements or whatever, like how much money we made or what our artists did. And then one time they made a mistake and they sent me Matthew Knowles's numbers, because Matthew, ran the department, and I saw how much money Destiny's Child made. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea that this was even the opportunity. But it's like, it kind of opened up our eyes to like, okay, because Sanctuary, they had Guns N' Roses, Destiny's Child, Elton John, and with us, like rap tours weren't big back then. And like, you had, dates that you could move around, but they weren't like big global ones or whatever. But, I shout out to Matthew Knowles for opening up for letting me intercept that fax.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest things occur with someone else's mistakes. Okay. So you're in London. So you guys seem to know how to maneuver, make the right moves. Do you plan on taking on any other foreign markets, perhaps maybe somewhere in Africa or anywhere else? Where would be your next move be in terms of foreign markets?
I would say, wherever is great. The benefit or the beauty of the internet is we get to see things that, are happening in different territories that we wouldn't necessarily have access to before. When complete transparency, when I personally was first played the, Nelly's music, I'm like, down, down, baby. You're like,
that was a jam though.
Nobody's gonna fuck with us, and then you get on a plane and go to St. Louis, and it's like, oh, this is their culture. Like, this is the subculture down here. Like, this is, he's talking some street shit. Like, but we had to get on a plane to figure that out. And I think nowadays with the beauty of the internet, and the connectivity of social media, I think you're able to experience those things virtually. So we're definitely looking at artists in every territory. We're just looking for great, right? It doesn't really matter where you're from. We're looking for great. And I think what we have to do as executives is be open, right? When my son first bought me the Kid Lancy that we signed from London, I was like, I'm like, UK rapper, it's never worked. It's never crossed over. It's like, it's not happening. And I kind of had to check myself, where it's like, first of all, you didn't even listen to the music yet, number one. And two is like, if he's a young kid that is, grew up in LA and he's into it, is already crossing. So, just kind of having to adjust to and not be so stuck in being, this is how we did it when we were coming up and how we did it before, like really truly listening to the young people around us, hearing them, right?
If it was only about my personal taste, I would only sign Stevie Wonder and Marsha from Floetry.
Yeah. So we got to be open we got to be open.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, with technology, a song or a record can gain exposure and be a hit virtually overnight. And as you guys are saying, in the 80s and 90s, artists would begin to hone their showmanship with another seasoned artist on tour together, featured our background singer. So Human Resources, your record distribution and label services company, has artist development as a centerpiece. How do you set up and develop artists in an instant world?
You got to move the culture. Right? We're a culture first company. I think that's what we're trying to that's the goal for us, and that's how we push our partners. That's how we push the team, is move the culture first. And It goes back to Troy's mantra of do dope shit. Is like, if you do dope shit, you move the culture. If you move the culture, all of the other tent poles are gonna fall in line. Whether it's playlisting or the live piece and collaborations and all of the things that it takes to kind of break artists. All of those things will fall in line if you start to move culture. And you know, more recently we've put more pressure on our team to build the creative around our releases, that, you know, in a way in which they have equal amount of stickiness as the music, right? And you know, the music has to be great, but the creative has to be great, and that's how the kids are gonna, you know, that's how it's really gonna be sticky with young people. But, you know, very simply for us, it's figuring out how to move culture first.
And the thing is too, like, you know, Jay signed two artists who, like, I'm fascinated with, and Baby Rose and Jensen McCrae. And these are artists that they're career artists, and it's like they're like you can't bake a cake in a microwave, and so with certain steps that you just can't skip. And when you got real artists like this who actually make bodies of work, and it's not about, I got to jump on this feature, or we got to do this remix, or you know, we got to rush and put this track out. It's about experiencing them live. It's about understanding their story. It's about other artists becoming fans of those artists. You know, so it's things that, you know, you just can't skip a step. And although things are happening much faster, and I think it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the artists. It puts a tremendous, like, and also just from a mental health perspective, you know, it's so much pressure that you see artists burning out quicker and quicker and quicker, and dealing with a lot of mental health issues, because you're expected to be in all of those places at one time. You know, you got to produce a tremendous amount of content, you know, social media, you're reading the comments, you know, it's 24/7 news cycles, you know, so it's a lot of pressure. And so it takes a lot of patience and experience to develop artists like this, you know. So luckily enough, you know, we have partners on those projects who sort of understand how to play long on those, and not you know, we're just going to burn this artist out in, you know, 6 to 12 months.
You know, it's interesting you said that, Troy, because we just did a show about mental health and, you know, anxiety and depression and suicide in the music industry and just in life in general. So what advice, because I love what you said about making sure artists don't burn out, but what advice do you give to artists as they're coming up in terms of not just not burning out, but when you have this overnight instant success, keeping your head in the game and making sure you stay aware of who's in your circle and keeping your mental health in check? What are some things, or what's some advice you would give to an artist to stay, you know, afloat and mentally healthy?
You know, I always talk about perspective, but like, I was talking to a young artist yesterday, and kind of sharing just some experiences that I've had, where it's like, it's just one picture, because the artist, they came to visit me, and they were looking at a picture that was up. And when I saw the picture, I was thinking about that moment that the picture was taken. And I'm like, this is a moment that the artist would have dreamt of. And I'm like, it was a miserable day.
Wow.
And because what ends up happening is, you know, you work so hard for this dream, and you got this idea of, this is going to make me happy and change everything. And when you get there, is not what you thought it was going to do for you, you know. So because getting whole isn't about becoming famous. It's not about getting rich. You know, that's a spiritual reconciliation that has to happen to get to that place of appreciating moments. Mm. So, you know, I tell young artists, is like, when you're in the studio for the first time, appreciate that. When you're in there for the second time, appreciate that. When you get to meet this person appreciate that? When you got to appreciate every single thing along the way, because it's like, if you get into this place of chasing and you get to this place of thinking it's going to happen, like, you know, like you're going to meet this magic moment and all of a sudden it's going to be euphoria. It doesn't exist. And that's when depression kicks in. And like, you know, we lost, you know, some of our friends and mentors in this business to suicide. You know, we like, just like the amount of, you know, specifically like with Black men in our business, you know, we come from places of pride, right? You know, I know how my grandfather was, right? You know, just like, you know, you kept your problems to yourself. My grandmother would say, what happens at 5133 stays at 5133. So you didn't tell nobody your family business.
Yeah.
So, you know, we go through this quiet suffering without anybody to talk to. And, you know, I think what like Chris Lighty's death had done was opened up a bit. And when Shake killed himself, I think it opened up a dialogue where people checked in on each other, you know, and I openly, like in a lot of interviews, talked about, you know, being depressed and dealing with, you know, financial hardships and things like that. And I did it at a time where it was like, people didn't talk about it, but I'm like, I know what I went through by myself, like in my head. And I'm like, I wish I would have known other people went through that. So to be able to give me that light at the end of the tunnel, to know I could get out of that and I don't have to suffer by myself.
And that's real, because you're going to give that to someone else. So through your pain, you found a purpose and you're going to be able to help other artists and other people in general. Mm-hmm. Jay, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, it's I wish more people had the benefit of a network like ours, right? Because we have real, genuine friendships. And, you know, I've been blessed to be surrounded by a group of guys that will, you know, that I can talk to, that, you know, they can check me when I need to be checked, when, you know, and, you know, we're the type of crew where it's like, yo, those pants look crazy, like, or you've been you've been working and out for a week straight, like, go home, like, you got to go see your kids, or you know, or, you know, talking you off the ledge when you're, you know, when you're you know, when you're going down the wrong path. I think I've been blessed to have a network of you know, that I can be vulnerable with, that I can talk to about things, that I can go to for help, that have seen me, you know, in up, down, and all around. And, you know, I encourage people to, you know, to find a network to, you know, that's as supportive as the network that I'm, you know, blessed to be a part of, you know, because that's what it's about. I mean, if it wasn't for, you know, my homies, like I don't know where I'd be, you know, and it just makes a huge difference. And we try to, you know, I think the Troy kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier when you know, because sometimes we try to be who we are to people that aren't like we are, and, you know, it makes extending our network tough sometimes, you know, because folks are not necessarily cut from the same cloth. And that doesn't make ours right or, you know, wrong, but my crew is right for me, you know. And I think finding people that are supportive, support you, that you can talk to, that you can open up to, that understand you, that help build you and help grow you, you know, that's the part that's gonna make a difference. Like I truly believe we are a makeup of the 6 people that we spend the most time with, and I try to make, you know, that those 6 people count.
Right.
You know, and it's just it's a testament to who we are as men, really, you know, and the women around us and how much they support us as well. But, you know, our friend group is special, and, you know, I just hope that everybody has the ability to find a similar network.
Yeah, because it that is so true, because like where information, access to information is probably the one of the biggest things that we learn. And because I think people talk about sort of access to capital, access to people, and all of these things. When you have people that you trust, that you can get information from and share information with, the strength that comes in that is what built generations of legacy. So that was those friend groups talking at country clubs and on golf courses, and white only men's clubs, and your son's gonna marry my daughter, and just they kept those, and it was a lot of information shared within those networks. And so I think one of the things that we learned was, what, if I know something, you're gonna know something. If you could teach me something, I'm gonna be open to learning from it. And I think, like Jay said, it's like we don't see a ton of it in our business, but it's important that we try to set an example for it.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think for a lot of artists right now, performing and doing concerts, that sometimes was like a good release for them, and a mental high, and just being able to perform. And I know you worked with Live Nation as a music partner, and right now the concert biz is shut down. So right now, what other assets do you provide when working with them? Because they can't perform, they don't have that outlet. So what are we doing now with that outlet gone?
That's the beauty of social, though. Like, so you still, it's that feedback loop. I don't think, for a lot of artists, they love the sort of in-person, energy exchange of being on stage. But, the good thing is, a lot of artists are still producing content. It's been a ton of live streams, like Jensen, who I just mentioned, she's been doing them pretty much almost every week. She's on some sort of live stream. Moses Sumney, who we work with, Moses has been doing them, and and you got brands that are paying artists to do these as well. So so it's both revenue and fan engagement in it as well.
Let me ask you something, because your companies started out as management companies that essentially took on the duties of past boutique labels, artist development, creative label services, publicity, etc. As a manager, have you ever been accused of having conflicting interests?
No, the labels, when they basically had to cut services during Napster, and so when the industry went through a downturn, a lot of management companies had to fill in blanks of where labels used to do. So, before, we would have never needed to have an internal promotions person or product managers or things along those lines. But when the services went down, like a lot of management companies had to step in. I think the biggest thing is to not double dip. So it's like, so if anything that happened, you actually get more value for the same commissions, essentially, because you still paying the same commission, but now you just got a much bigger team because the management companies had to fill in. And, and that was the sort of turning point where you saw, whether it was, what we've been doing, whether it was with, Gaio, Siri, and Maverick, whether it was Rock Nation, Scooter Braun, Red Light, all of a sudden when labels went down, management companies had to basically bulk up just to make sure that we could still provide value to clients.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think is fascinating with both of you guys is that you use a lot of technology, algorithms, analytics. So with the advent of technology guiding us, do you think predictive analytics will take over our guts, or will soul prevail?
I think the way we look at data is that it's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So, because data actually comes from it comes from information gathered by humans, essentially, right? From behavior. So, so the behavior had to come from somewhere. The behavior didn't come from the computers. So, or the, and algorithms are built around that behavior. So I don't think it ever will, gut won't get replaced.
Okay.
Data it informs you on information that's surfacing, but what people are mistaken is that most of the times, especially with data around music, is not contextualized properly. Mm-hmm. So like, when I was at Spotify, you would see records come in, and they'll come in and all of a sudden you'll see it has oh my God, the skip rate on this record is so high, maybe this record isn't a hit. And that's not actually the case. It's like people skip by because it's not familiar to them yet. Mm-hmm. So once you get familiarity, or, all of a sudden, a music video will come out around that song, and then people will say, oh my God, I love it, because it's contextualized different. But if you let the data tell you, the data would have told you that record wasn't a hit. Mm-hmm. So this is where I feel like we can't become overly reliant on analytics. We gotta understand that it's a tool. The flip side of it is where it works to our advantage, and it works is on the consumer side. Okay. Because when, like, the fact that the algorithm will will understand what your schedule is or what you're doing at any point in your life. Okay, you know what? You're going to the gym, and Monique's at the gym. I know to turn on this playlist. Okay, she's coming home at 7. I know exactly, what to put on right now. So being able to prompt music when you didn't even know music should have been prompted at that particular time. So it's things like that where I feel like it'll be very useful.
Yeah, I know my playlist is so confusing. I have gospel, I have WAP, I have Luther Vandross. They don't know who I am, so it's all over the place. So
we do the WAP challenge, though. That's what we need.
I'll bring it back.
You can't play WAP on Sunday. Sunday at what? After Yolanda Adams.
Worship and praise. So, Jay, you talk a lot about playlists too. So tell me from your perspective, the importance of playlists, and how do you guys get artists on the hottest playlist? How does that work for someone who needs the one-on-one on that?
I mean, playlists are massively important to moving the needle on artists. I think that we try to, when I talked about moving culture first, we try to have, the soliciting of playlisting being more of a function of that's what it's supposed to go in, because of what we've done in terms of moving the culture, and not having to ask, favors. I've learned that when Troy was at Spotify, and I'm like hitting him up like, yo, I need this artist in, this New Music Friday or this or that. And it's like, sometimes if you haven't touched the culture first, you go in too early, and and you're not getting it back, right? Like Troy alluded to, like the skip rates are high because people just they're not familiar with the artist yet. You haven't touched the culture yet. So I think getting to a point of being able to solicit playlisting and push for playlisting on a high level, you got to go out and do some work first. It doesn't start there. And I think the way that we challenge our team is like, bring me a marketing plan that doesn't include playlisting. What are all the other things that we're doing that doesn't include playlisting that we're going to do to move the needle? Because we could get caught up in that old school record label shit where it's like radio. Everything is about radio, and you're not thinking about how to move the culture first before you're going to radio. And you can't just pay for playlisting. So you got to be able to move the culture in order for it to make sense and actually stick.
What other things would you want to see in that marketing plan outside of playlists?
I want to see what the content what the content strategy is, what the digital strategy is, what the social strategy is, what the live strategy is. Even in I had a conversation with someone recently about an artist, and they're like, there is no live strategy because of COVID, and we can't do shows. And I'm like, that's not true, because live is, there's still an element of live online. And so I want to see all of those things. I want to see all of those tempos and how we're moving all of those things forward. It starts with the music, right? But once you get the music, and then you're building to the creative, and then you're building a plan around these other tempos that don't have anything to do with playlisting. How do we get these editors to know who these artists are and already be rocking with them before we go to solicit playlisting from them?
And Troy, you talked about algorithms. Now, I think this is a quote from you, because we're talking about how Cambridge Analytica used algorithms during presidential elections and by Trump operatives. So does Facebook. So in a past interview, you said something to this effect, quote, Donald Trump's campaign shouldn't be more advanced than a Taylor Swift campaign. We should be way, way, way more ahead. I'm just excited about getting more PhD level data scientists into the music industry. So why do you think the use of predictive analytics is good for music? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it is because it's right now in real time. It's still happening, right? So because when you look at what political campaigns have been able to do is figure out what messages resonate with whom, and they produce batches of micro content, and they test and test and test and test and test, and then they target cohorts. And in the music industry, it's like, okay, here's the ad, let's just blast it, let's sort of blast it out, or here's the one or two pieces of content, let's blast it out. And it's a company called Palantir, who's been around for probably 15 years now or so. But when it comes, like, they built algorithms to track terrorist activity on the internet.
Wow.
And it's all based upon behavior. And so they're, the CIA is their client, FBI is their client, DEA, governments, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, Target hires them. All of a sudden you got like corporations coming in saying, okay, I understand now, we got to go after specific audiences. And the music industry is just so far behind. So far behind.
Yeah. Now, I know we're nearing an hour, and I just have two more questions. Number one, what would you guys say to artists who rely on numbers?
Don't.
Like streaming numbers?
Say that again?
Streaming numbers?
Yes.
I would say for me, it's about the number of fans. Because I think that is, like, if you look at, those are things that we measure for, right? It's like, you can have a crazy amount of streams, but how many of those streams did you convert to actual followers? And then how many of those followers could actually turn into fans? Because the fans, like, that's your base, and that's who you're marketing to. And but I think the focus should be on, am I actually building fans, and is it quantifiable? Can I actually measure that?
I like that. How about for you, Jay? You said don't.
I mean, I think Troy's right. In terms of fans, I think not getting caught up in the numbers is what I was referring to. And not letting, numbers kind of affect how you move and your creativity and kind of doing it for that. I think if you're making the right records and you're doing the right things culturally, like, you'll get to the number. but not making it all about the numbers.
Okay, and then one last question for each of you. First of all, Troy, I know you did Shark Tank a few years ago, and I was reading about that experience, how, or as you call it, they're more like little guppies, not really sharks. You said that Mark was great, and you talked about the importance of making sure there's a balance where you have that aggressive, in your face, where you give that type of advice, but then you have that understanding balance. Tell me more about that, because I think that's important, and I've seen that in this call with you today. Very down to earth brother.
Yeah, I just think it's like the more real you can be with information for people, the more helpful you are to them. So it's like, it's, if I could sit here and tell somebody, oh, you got, the best idea, or, this thing's going to work, or I could give them just real feedback and ask some of the hard questions. And, I don't have the best memory, right? Like, so where, like, cause but people will come back and say, oh, you don't remember when you told me X, Y, Z. And like, I got to pretend like I remember what I told them or whatever. But it's like, it's being able to give people real information can help send them on the right direction. You know what I'm saying? And so that's, I just try to, especially when it comes to, if we're investing our own money, trust me, it's like we're going to poke every single hole in it.
Right. And Jay, last question for you. A lot of this interview has been a lot about camaraderie, and you guys have brotherhood. And, I see you went to a HBCU, Clark Atlanta. And can you talk about, because HBCUs are a lot in the press right now with our vice presidential candidate who went to an HBC, the other HU, I went to Hampton, but talk about how that experience has shaped you as an executive and in terms of brotherhood and being an executive in this industry.
I think it was a phenomenal experience. I think it was Atlanta in general, really, to be honest. Just kind of being in and seeing so many smart, motivated young black people was fantastic. And my the time in which I was there. You had DJ Drama, Don Cannon, Lake, who manages Lil Uzi and Jack Harlow. That was those guys, and those are all Philly guys, and we were all in college around the same time, and to be able to kind of see Black excellence, during, to start kind of my ramping up and going into starting my business. I think it was a phenomenal experience for sure.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. This has been a great time. And I love your relationship. I love your brotherhood. I could have talked your ear off for another few hours, but thank you so much for joining Music Day. You guys are definitely a verified hit. And thanks for all of those gems that you dropped today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're worth it. 3 words we have all heard at least 1,000 times, right? You're worth it. But do you really understand what that means? It's a beautiful reminder to us all that we have worth. You have reason and rarity. There is value in each and every one of us, including you. That is precious even on the days you might not feel it. You never depreciate in value. Those words are there to remind you. So to all those watching who feel like that or have ever felt like that, focus on what I'm about to say and repeat after me. I'm worth it. Okay? Maybe that felt great, or perhaps that felt weird. Let's go again. First, take a deep breath and let it out. Forget the naysayers and silence the critics, even if the harshest words are the ones you say to yourself. Do not doubt yourself, and this time, speak it louder, really loud. I'm worth it. And the next time you hesitate before going after something you want, the next time you blush and brush off a compliment, the next time you doubt your place in the world, in the workplace, in your home, or in your own skin, say these words to yourself: I'm worth it. And I know you will always say it like you mean it. I'm worth it. Because you are. And always will be. Got that?
Music Day, a verified hit, is presented by the Living Legends Foundation, Inc. Real talk with experience. Please follow and share Music Day on Instagram at Living Legends Foundation and at Music Day Podcast, on Twitter at the LLF Inc. Join us on Facebook, The Living Legends Foundation. Executive producers are Jacqueline Reinhardt, Mark Hill, Ken Johnson, and Pat Shields. Our associate producers are Shannon Henderson, Sheila Eldridge, Tony Winger, Vivian Scott Chu, and Varnell Johnson. Production by Mark Hill Creative. Talent booking, Black.LLC. Theme music by Wendell Wellman for Star Maker Global. Interstitial music by William Reinhardt. And I'm your announcer, Jay Johnson.